Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So we are finally here with our Taemin album review. Honestly, we were meant to do this a week ago, but then as we looked at the track list, we realized, hold on, we haven't seen the MV for Two Kids. We also realized, even though it's a Korean version of Famous on the album, that there's actually a Japanese version that has a music video. So we wanted to check that out first too. So both of those videos are now out. We've checked them out, and we felt safe to head into the album and just enjoy it in its glory. So heading into this album, what was your expectation?
I guess we've seen Criminal, which was like our entry point into Taemin. And that sort of set the expectation, along with the songs we checked out next, like Move, und, like they all got that sort of low-key, like, you know, emotional, like
but Move and
like,
Want aren't part of the album. So.
No, but what I mean is like what we expected from Taemin, our expectations of Taemin, is that he's able to emote through his music, whether it's dancing, you know, in the music videos where we can see him, but also when we can't see him while listening to the album or listening to the music, his voice does a lot of that heavy lifting, where he's able to use it so subtly to get you to feel what the song's about.
Yeah, I agree. I think Taemin's really good at both using his voice or his body to emote the meaning of the songs. So yeah, going in, obviously we had checked out Criminal and we checked out Two Kids, and they're two very different songs. So if I hadn't heard Two Kids prior to going in, I would have definitely been like, oh, it's going to be like a sultry kind of album. Yeah. But then having heard Two Kids, which is a complete contrast to what Criminal was musically, it kind of was like, oh, okay, we've got a spectrum going on here. And it kind of took away the expectations of what exactly a Taemin album would be like. Because this is our first time checking out a full Taemin album. I'm sure he's had others in the past, but yeah, we're just recently in the Taemin brigade. So heading in, because Criminal had that kind of like seductive temptation kind of element, but Two Kids was almost like regretful, like the demise of a relationship, sad. And then we obviously checked out Famous, which
probably was a combination of both.
A little bit, but rather than speaking about a relationship, it was more speaking about the trials of fame, and between like what's real, what isn't, the temptation of fame, and the danger of fame. So it was kind of somewhere in the midpoint. It was kind of the way it was delivered, especially with like the whisper, "It's so famous." It was kind of in that seductive realm, but it was like a sadness to it. But having said that, Criminal was kind of about a toxic relationship, so it's not like Criminal was like a happy-go-lucky song either.
Most of his stuff has a very melancholic feel to it. Like I don't think we've heard a song that was just like, you know, because I'm happy, clap your hands. Like, you know, that's not Taemin.
No, and this album, for me, this album was just like a range of like the relationships. Like I kind of felt when we started off with Blackrose, we were kind of discussing like a toxic relationship, and then as we move through the album, we go in the order the songs are listed. It kind of moves into a realm of loneliness and reminiscing, and then in the middle you've got Famous, which is kind of back to temptation again before moving back on to like that missing the person, and then finally kind of the regret of a failed relationship or things you've done in the past. So the album as a whole for me was it was almost like moving through the different stages of not like moving through the stages of grief, but moving through the stages of like relationships that don't work out. When you go from that stage where you're kind of like desperate to stay together, but then when you do break up, kind of the various things that happen, like, you know, for example, one of the songs he talks about like in Strangers, where they meet in the street but pretend not to know each other. Like prior to that, the songs have been about toxic relationships, and then it's like, oh, now we don't even acknowledge each other in the street. It's kind of like, it's like the extremes of relationships and the impact they have on you and your emotions. And even though maybe you acknowledge how toxic it is, you can't let go, or maybe you have already broken up but you're still caught in the what ifs, or if I done that, or missing that person despite it. So I felt like the album as a whole was very contemplative of relationships, especially probably youthful relationships, and kind of maturing and the temptation of relationships, and letting go when you need to, and kind of how those people stay with you. That was kind of what I took from it. What about you?
Yeah, like definitely. I feel like the first part of the album for sure had a very logical feel to it. Like with Criminal, Blackrose, Strangers, it definitely felt like different stages. Criminal, as you mentioned, like it felt like a toxic relationship where, you know, you're getting sucked in, but you also know how like it's dangerous and stuff. And I thought it was a really such a strong start. When I sat down for the album and that was the first song, I was like, ooh. And I think it makes sense too, because that's our first entry into Taemin. So,
it is. Yeah.
So it felt right. It's like, okay, you feel comfortable, you know, this is like Taemin doing his thing. It's that luscious sound, orally, visually, right? And so it leads into Blackrose. We checked out the live stage before, so again, that song is like, feels like a progression, and then like and then Strangers was again like, you know, Strangers is like when you're broken up already and you see that person on the street or something, and you're like the line I love was like, you know, because you and I are strangers with memories. It's like that contrast. Everyone knows that feeling, or can, you know, empathize with it. And it's really beautiful.
Yeah, because even I think it's that song where he also mentions like, you know me better than I know myself, but now we're just strangers, which is, it's weird when you know someone knows a lot about you but you're no longer in contact. It's that kind of direct cut and ties is really jarring for people.
And that song felt really cinematic to me. Like as soon as the song started, the piano in the background, it just felt like you can imagine the scene, like it could be in a movie. It could have an MV. It should have an MV, right?
Just petition for an MV.
So I thought the start of the album, and even leading up to Famous, like with, I know you liked Waiting for You, right?
Yeah, well, I really like the tango. For me, it sounded almost like a tango, the way the music went. It was just the way the piano, guitar, and the drum kind of came together. It kind of
very ballroom-y.
Something like along those lines. And for me, I enjoyed that rhythmicness of it, and it kind of gave the song, like, it made it stand out, because prior to that we'd had piano and we'd had guitar, but I really liked it. And then I also liked how they switched up the pace in the chorus, where they had that kind of distorted deep male voice doing that little tiny bit towards the end of the chorus. And I can see why for some people they might feel like that's a little bit out of place, but for me that kind of switch of pace just at that point was perfect. It kind of added more texture to the song. I really liked what was it called? Waiting for You.
I did feel Famous, even though I thought it was a good song, it felt narratively different from the album. Like when you got to Famous, it's like, oh, that's almost like not a filler song, because I know, but it seems like it's stuck in there in a way.
I mean, as the midpoint, like as I said, like most of the songs, all the songs in fact, seem to be dealing with the different stages of relationships, especially in your kind of your younger years when you're not as communicative or as like, you know, healthy about how you approach relationships. And then Famous, even though it is discussing a relationship, as in your relationship with fame, the temptation, maybe the reason Famous was there is that he wanted to comment on how his fame impacts him, and therefore the relationships around him.
That's a good one. And then like probably like Korean fans, there was huge demand for a Korean version of the song. Maybe I don't know, is that part of it?
I don't know. I mean, it's a really cool song. I mean, there are some lines in Famous that kind of seem to tie into like your relationship with a person, but overall I thought Famous was more discussing like the realities of fame, and Yeah, if I had to pick a song that I felt that didn't fit as much into the album as the others, I would pick Famous. But having said that, I really like Famous, so I'm gonna leave it there.
It is like a bonus song in a way. But yeah, I feel like the second half of the album was less strong than the first. And narratively, like starting from Famous, it felt a bit not as tightly wound as like the first 4 songs. But then Two Kids like kind of felt like a solid end to it.
I just think that the second half of the album was just a little bit more sentimental.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
The first half was more, I want to say produced in a way. It was kind of more feeding into the Taemin we know.
Yeah.
And then the second half of the album was a little bit more pared back and kind of...
Showed some versatility because you got like Nemo, which was more R&B. Just Me and You was like... Just Me and You was very different from the rest of the album in that it wasn't completely sad. It was like...
It was melancholy though.
It was melancholy, but it wasn't sad. It was more... like not a celebration, but like an appreciation of like you had lyrics like, you know, we draw each other in the dark, erase everything else in this messy world so that only we remain.
Yeah, it's like appreciating each other.
Yeah, it's very like, yeah, it's still melancholy, but it's not like Criminal, Blackrose, Strange, or something like that.
No, I agree.
Right?
I wrote here, sorry, just in case you're wondering why Lucky died, I kept notes. Yeah, I wrote that it's a sweet song, a little melancholy. I thought it was sweet the way it was kind of about embracing the person and kind of getting lost in them a little bit. But then, we move on to Nemo and Two Kids, and then it's kind of like, oh, we're back to losing people and like missing them and regret.
Yeah. But Two Kids almost feels like a different look. Like it's almost like a reflection later on. Yeah. Like Strangers like might be something that was closer to the immediate breakup of a relationship or something. Whereas Two Kids felt like a reflection where it's like, oh, we were just 2 kids, young and dumb. So
I mean, if
distance.
If I think of the MV, which obviously is Taemin kind of stumbling around, he's obviously had a rough night. It feels like Two Kids was written and is being spoken about closer to the breakup. But in the terms of the album, it feels like Two Kids is something that happened years later, looking back and kind of, you know, you've come to terms with it all and you've moved on, but you're kind of thinking about that period and the what ifs, I guess.
Yeah. Exactly.
Anyway, so highlights of the album.
I guess for me, like definitely Criminal is just and because Criminal and Blackrose were our first 2 Taemin songs, definitely you feel that connection with those songs. But I also think they are strong songs in the album. They both are just when you listen to them, it's just so rich, you know, like in the way he is able to convey those emotions. Like we've talked about this in reactions before, but his songs, like he's able to like there's almost a suspense to his voice where he doesn't give you everything in one go, and like he keeps you on your seat like how it feels like almost how he paces it, right? Where there's like lulls, there's like highs and lows and valleys, peaks, all that kind of stuff, where it doesn't feel like it's just level, like he starts at 100 and goes like has nowhere else to go, right? So I feel like those 2 songs definitely exemplify that. And then I really like Strangers and Just Me and You, because it's just, you know, such a different vibe to the rest of the album too.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Criminal. That was a highlight. I think it's a perfect title track. It's definitely my favorite title track. If you include Famous as the title track as well. I enjoyed Strangers a lot. I just really liked the flow of the song. Like how even like the footsteps, it was like the music almost sounded like footsteps at points. And it almost had like a staccato delivery at times before coming into the chorus, which was kind of a little bit more longing almost. I enjoyed it a lot. And then for me, Waiting for You, I just really liked that kind of tango vibe that was going on. I just enjoyed it a lot. And then, overall, I think the album's really strong. If we had to pick a song that just didn't hit the spot for us, I would say Nemo for me. I think it's a really sweet, I think it's a nice song, but if I compare it to the others on the album, it's the one that kind of drew me in the least. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I think Nemo and maybe Clockwork I didn't really feel as I think they're all strong songs, but Nemo and Clockwork just felt on a different tier than the others.
Oh, that's interesting. For me, I really like Clockwork. I thought it was the most touching song on the album lyrically.
Maybe I have to look at the lyrics
from a lyrics perspective, I did like Clockwork. It was just a little bit under the ones I mentioned as being the highlights for me.
Alright.
So then if we had to choose our favorite songs combined, it sounds like both of us are agreed on Criminal and Strangers as being the highlights of this album. Yeah? Mm-hmm. We can agree on that. All right, and then to wrap this up, our conclusion on the album. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I mean, we basically talked about most of it, right? It's just got this sort of melancholy, beautiful, talking about heartbreak. It's a dark album, very intimate. What I noticed is a lot of the lyrics is you and I, you and me and you. It's just, it feels, it doesn't feel like he's singing for a stadium full of people. Right?
No, this album does feel like maybe, especially toward the latter half, that it would be best performed in a more intimate venue. Just because, the songs, they do have that more intimate feeling. And it does feel like he's talking to someone as opposed to talking to all of us. And then in terms of the album itself, it's a part 1. So we're curious, where is it going to go for part 2? Because this album seems to have gone through the whole spectrum of kind of the darker sides of relationships and navigating breakups and kind of dealing with loss over time. So it's kind of it's interesting. I wonder, is part 2 going to be more about the joyful side of things, maybe discovering new relationships, but with a more maturity than maybe when you were young. So it's interesting because I feel as someone who's entering his late 20s, his perspective on relationships will be different than presumably the ones that are kind of being talked about from, because I'm assuming based on his age that the earlier relationships would have been the early 20s, so you're in a different place mentally.
Well, speaking of age, I saw a comment while looking up lyrics for this album that he's approaching military age as well, and the title of this album is Never Gonna Dance Again. So it does suggest there is that vulnerability apparently of just he's contemplating his career, and some of these songs might also have double meanings where he's speaking about his fame and his relationship with his career and stuff.
Yeah, that's true. I did think that some of the songs, whilst on the surface level would be relationship songs, there is definitely an element of they could be inferred as his relationship with his career or the industry or music in general. That's true. All right, so there you have it, our thoughts on Taemin. Obviously, we really enjoy Taemin's music and we've enjoyed listening to the album. We're going to continue to explore his back catalogue because we haven't gone that far into it yet. We've only checked out a few songs, so we're excited to see more from Taemin. Yeah. So if you want to follow us along in that journey, be sure to hit the subscribe button and we'll be back probably early next week with some new Taemin content. Anyway guys, thank you for checking out our review and lots of love.
Yeah, thanks.